Hey, this is Richard Twilight Pools. Hey, today we're going to be doing a full troubleshooting on a pool pump motor. Just give you some ideas of what to look for, trying to determine when you need to replace the motor or if it's just a capacitor. I have a different video on if the pool motor is humming, easy fix related to replacing the capacitor. Check that one out if that's what you got first. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm always going to check the breakers. Make sure that the pool pump motor, this one right here, so this one's marked this one, and so that's going to be on breaker, the numbers 2 and 4. So this one right here, so I'm just going to turn this off and then turn this back on, just make sure it resets fully. If it comes and then only goes about halfway, or if it only immediately comes over and then it immediately kind of trips and only goes halfway, then something's grounding out in the motor itself. It's probably new motor time, because it's either the actual breaker is having a problem, or there's a ground fault in the motor itself that is not allowing this to trip. So if you need to, you might need to get an electrician to figure that out. But we'll continue to go on to other steps here that will help you as well. So, like, let's say this one right here is going to be this one's on a manual timer. If you have a relay, then it works in a similar way, because you're going to have, I'm going to call it works in a similar way. I'm going to call these legs. This one is not used only in like 110 wiring, but in 240 wiring, then this would be legs 1, 2, 3, 4. If you have a relay, sometimes they're marked 2, 4, 6, 8. I don't exactly know why they did that, but whatever. I'm just still going to talk about legs 1 and 3 are your supply lines. So you've got 110 voltage coming in here and 110 voltage coming in here. This is basically 4 motors that are running off of 240 volts. So on legs 1 and 3, then you should be able to test with a voltage meter to make sure that you have approximately 120 volts coming on each leg. Those go together to make 240. So how you would do that is put a tester right here. You put your first tester, your red tester here, and then your black tester on here, and you're on the voltage on your voltage meter to make sure. So you have 120 here, red tester here, black tester here on your ground, and then you're going to do the same thing. Go to leg 3, a red one here, and then black one here, and you should show those voltages. If you let's say you only have 120 here on leg 1, and then this one is not giving you 120, then it's probably your breaker, because your breaker, one of the legs went out on it, and then your breaker needs to be replaced because it's not sending the other 120 volts here. So therefore, this is going to your motor. This is that whenever you turn this switch right here, well, then this is going to connect legs 1 and 2, and then also 3 and 4. So that's how you get these right here on 3 and 4. Those are going to be going to your motor. That goes on down to your motor. So if you're having it not run, or it's only humming or buzzing or something like that, check the capacitor first. But these are other things to check electrically related to trying to determine if the breaker's messed up. If you only have 120 coming on one leg but not the other one, then it's probably the breaker. One of the legs went out on the breaker, therefore it's not seeing the power here. Therefore, that's why your air pump's motor's not running. So now, another thing you want to check on the back of the motor is you want to make sure that the posts, basically the wires, are connected properly. I have the electricity off to this, but you want to make sure that these are connected properly and secure. And these are going to be on L1 and L2. You can see the L1 and L2 right there. Make sure they're connected. Make sure your ground wire's connected good. Eliminate there's an electrical problem because maybe a loose. I've seen that a motor's not running. It doesn't have 240 volts because one of these legs is off. It just came loose and then it's just hanging here. You reconnect it and then turn the electricity back on, start the motor, and then everything's fine. So just make sure you eliminate that that there's any problems with the electrical wire. Of course, if you don't know what you're doing electrically, then contact an electrician or a registered pool professional. I have my appliance license, so you're supposed to have appliance license to be able to work on electrical pool stuff. you know, this stuff falls under appliances as far as the electrical code. Pool equipment falls under appliances. So anyway, just make sure you know what you're doing. Otherwise, don't do it because you don't want to get hurt with electricity. Looking at the capacitors, then I'll just click this one on so you can hear like what this one's doing. A lot of times this one may be similar to if you're only getting 120 volts instead of the 240. See, it's barely, the shaft is still spinning, and then it clicks off. I didn't turn the switch off, I just now turned the switch off. So what's happening is that this one, the motor, something's going on with the motor. I've already checked the capacitors. I'll have a separate video related to checking the capacitors. And I'll also replace the capacitor on here, put a different one on. It's still the same thing. So we've eliminated the issue with the capacitor. The next thing you want to eliminate is that you want to spin the shaft freely. If you can spin it freely with your fingers, then the shaft of the motor, sometimes it gets corroded, and then it's not going to allow the capacitor to start it, to turn it over so that the windings can take over. So I can spin the shaft freely. The capacitor, we've already eliminated it. It's not the capacitor. Checked it. The capacitor was good. What's happening with this one, I've got 240 volts going to the motor. Capacitor's good. The shaft spins freely. Then your last option is you've got to replace the motor. I would think something's gone wrong with the windings on the inside. That's why it's not transferring all of the volts it's probably not transferring all the volts to the motor. Therefore, that's why it sounds like it's just barely running. It's not actually running at full speed. Obviously, this is a single speed pump. It should be running wide open, but it's just barely turning the water. Also, you're eliminating that something is clogging it in here. If I can spin the shaft freely with my fingers, then there's nothing stopping the impeller from moving. That kind of thing. So those are kind of the troubleshooting steps that you go through checking a pump pool motor. And in this case, this motor would need to be replaced because something's gone wrong with the windings inside. It's just not able to turn over properly. The capacitor's helping it turn over start. It's got 240 volts, but it's not continuing to turn over and actually run. That click that you heard, what happens when it's only barely moving, it overheats quickly, and then there's a thermal switch on the motor that basically cuts power, and that little click that you heard is clicking it back to cut power to on again so that it's allowed to run. If you touch the pool pump motor really quickly, I've only done this one twice, so it's not really super hot, but if it does it while it's all running, it's been running all day, then the motor will be super hot, and it'll try to run, and then after about 10 seconds it'll cut off. That little thermal switch will cut off and then be off for a few minutes until it cuts back on, and then it keeps trying to turn on. In this case, this motor's messed up, so we'll have to replace the motor. Hope this is helpful. See you next time.